I'm going to let Jasmine Corona take over. And so I'm going to be a little more quiet as time goes by, but welcome everybody. And I'm going to hand this over to Jasmine Corona.
Thank you, Rose. Welcome, everyone. I want to thank you for being here, and especially to our panel participants. Here, let me pull up my window. Let me pull up my screen. We can go ahead and get started. So welcome to Adelante's chat with Grad Alumni. My name is Jasmine Corona, and I'm the training specialist with Adelante and the Student Learning Center. And I'd like to introduce our panel: Ashley Weaver, Juan Vega, Gagandeep Singh, Gustavo Marti, and Merida de Venuta. So we can go ahead and get started with the questions, unless you'd like, unless you would like to introduce yourselves and have your names be heard the way you'd like to say them.
I love that. That's a great idea, Jasmine. Who would like to start?
I'll just go. I'm Ashlyn Weaver. I am a, I wear many hats. Okay. I am the assistant coordinator for the Northeast Information Center. I graduated with my MA in anthropology in the middle of COVID in 2020. I am the advisor for Chico State Pacific Islanders Club. And right now I took the leap again, and I'm going to Shasta Community College, since everything's online, to get my certificate in Geographic Information Systems. Okay, I'm done.
Wonderful.
I can go next since I'm on the list next. My name is Juan Vega. Thank you. You pronounced that perfectly. I graduated recently in the spring, and I now am an administrative support assistant in the International Admissions Office here at Chico State.
Welcome, Juan.
Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Gagandeep Singh. I am a sport and performance psychology consultant based out of India. And I was enrolled in the master's program in kinesiology with my specialization in sport and performance psychology. And currently I have my own startup. It's called Hello Excellence Consulting, through which I help organizations, athletes, and students reach their peak potential through mental skills.
Awesome.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Gustavo. I graduated from Chico State in 2017 with my bachelor's in psychology, and then in 2020 with my master's in psychology, also from Chico State. And after working for a year at Chico State as a training specialist for the Student Learning Center, I applied to UCLA and was accepted, and I'm now starting my PhD in social psychology at UCLA. Happy to be here.
Welcome.
Yes, I'm last. Merida de Venuta, you pronounced it very well. Jasmine, good job. So I graduated in 2020 with the MS in marriage and family therapy. Did my undergrad at Chico State as well. I think it was 2013 with psychology. Took a little gap there, but I actually am also doing a startup, my own company for coaching. Took a pivot from therapy because I moved states, and that was a little hairy trying to get back into transfer my license, but I'm using my experience, which I had doing academic coaching through the ARC at Chico State, and transferring that into coaching other students on a broad scale, and also individual clients working through whatever issues that they need to work through.
Wonderful. Welcome, Maretta.
Can I
Thank you.
also say something? I'm so sorry. I did not say this after my intro, but can I just take a moment for all of us to acknowledge the Indigenous people that we currently reside on their lands? Can we recognize the Machupta Maidu? Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, Ashlyn. We appreciate that. Yes, we're on the Machupta Maidu ancestral lands at Chico State, and we recognize and thank them.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up. But wow, we have a panel of overachievers with us today, but you're here to share your insight with our students and our student body. So, and hopefully they learn from your wonderful experiences on your journeys. So we'll go ahead and get started. So the first question is, during your first days as a grad student, what were your biggest fears and did they come to fruition?
Are we just gonna go in order?
If you'd like, or whoever wants to jump in, you can speak to a question that speaks to you and you want to answer, or you don't have to answer every question.
Well, I since I'm on, I'll go. So when I moved here and going to grad school, my biggest fears, I mean, honestly, and I think as humans too, is I don't know anyone and I want friends and I want to be the cool kid, right? And it actually took a while because being in grad school and having such a small cohort of people that you work with, especially the first few years, couple of years, it was hard because you're filling everyone out but you're also competing with them in a way, right? To get a TA position, to get the best grade, right? You want to be like the tadantana, right? of your cohort of the people. But after about a year or so, when I really figured out we have nothing, like none of our research has anything to do with each other, right? And then anthropology, like being a master's student in anthropology, there's 4 different fields that are under that anthro umbrella, right? You have museums, cultural, physical, or forensic anthropology, and archaeology. And I was the only cultural student in there. I had no competition, right? So it was a little different for me. And then after I kind of put that barrier down, I still hang out with people that were in my cohort now. We still get together now that COVID's over, and we still hang out. So now that I'm out of school and I see because I still work for the school, right? And I see all the new cohorts coming in and they're scared and what am I going to do and everything. And it's just like, look, in 3 years when you're graduating, you will be laughing at yourself right now because that is so minor compared to what you will do and what you have done and what you're going to achieve after you've completed your master's.
Yeah, exactly, Ashlyn. I'm sorry. It was Ashlyn, right? Yeah, exactly. That is a common fear and a myth that you're going to be put up against each other. And how are you expected to work collaboratively with people that you're working against? But I think that's one of the things that is like a surprise about grad school, that you're not. I guess it depends on the program and how competitive it is. Does anybody else want to speak to the question?
Yeah, I definitely would agree with that. I'm a bit of a loner, so I transferred to CSU Chico for my BA in history from a community college, and my girlfriend, now wife, girlfriend at the time, she was already at Chico State, so I didn't necessarily come without any friends or anything like that. So, and I have a little bit of a loner, so I wasn't looking necessarily to, befriend people. But the thing that I learned about the program, just like Ashlyn said, it's such a small cohort that you inevitably become friends with everyone because you're seeing them in every class. You're running into the same issues. So yeah, I would agree that it seems like it can be a bit of an issue to compete and be friends with people, but I don't think I think the competition lives in your head, really. I think every department wants their students to succeed. So I mean, there are limited resources and, you know, the TA ships and stuff like that. You do kind of have to be a little bit more competitive. But I think everyone gets their due as long as they're putting their work in. For me, my biggest fear was feeling like I wasn't going to be taken seriously, or, you know, not sound smart enough during discussions and stuff like that. And that never came to fruition because none of my peers or my professors ever made me feel like whatever I said didn't matter. Of course, that's just my experience, but that was one of my biggest fears, and luckily it never actually happened.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up because that is a real fear that some of our students face. And sometimes the quiet ones are they're brilliant in writing, and because that's just one-on-one with the professor, but it's sometimes like getting them to engage and making the classroom a safe space for students.
I'd like to piggyback off that and echo what Ashlyn and Juan just said. Yeah, I had that fear coming in because I took a break between undergraduate and graduate school, like the whole imposter syndrome, which I don't know if other programs talk about as much. The marriage and family therapy program definitely talked about it a lot. And Gustavo, he was in a adjoining cohort, so he could probably speak a little bit of that too. But I felt like we had a big cohort with 16 students, so it kind of got a little cliquey at times. But the members that I became close with, I still do talk to. And yeah, that fear of feeling stupid in class was always there for me. But then throughout the program, professors and classmates would, help debunk that fear. But one of my biggest fears going into it was like technology, all these things. And first week of school, my phone broke. I had to get a new hard drive on my laptop, like students' worst fears, which I just realized going back and thinking about that. And we started our cohort during an eclipse. So I don't know if that has something to do with it, but just all my fears that sort of would come true, they were like Ashlyn said, like in the long run, not that terrifying, or, okay, I got to go to the Geek Squad, get that fixed, get a new phone, okay, spend the money, kind of a thing. So you just learn to roll with the punches through grad school a lot better than any other period, I think, in my life. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for your insight. You definitely do learn how to ride the wave in grad school. So thank you for answering the first question. We'll go ahead and move on to the next. So the second question is, what surprised you the most about your grad experience, positive or negative? I believe we started touching upon this question already, but I'll let the question marinate for a little bit.
So I definitely want to talk about the negative, especially speaking with this group of people. Majority of us are people of color. What really surprised me, and it just depends, I'm not going to point the finger at the whole grad program, it just depends on where you're at, time and space kind of thing. But I was, and I don't know if anyone else can speak on this, but I was stereotyped a lot by different individuals. So that had the negative outcome for me. And stereotype as in being Hawaiian, just some things, being a person of color. So that was the negative outcome. That really surprised me with grad school. But there's so many positives that really outshine those negatives. It's unfortunate those negative things happen, but you can't control people. You can't control how they think or how they were taught. But the positives is just the amount of opportunities that literally came knocking to my door, and just being starting off in grad school as an intern, right, and then moving up in that field that I'm in, and at the job that I was at, and then from there getting a secure position. And then once I received my master's, then being offered the position that I'm in now, which was so good for me. Now that I'm an assistant coordinator, and I like having the pressure, and I like having the responsibility, and yeah, being a real human. Do I come home and cry sometimes? Just a little bit, but just being in the position and being able to go to conferences and travel and still have my hand in academics and everything is so awesome to me. I love it. And I love the job that I do and where I work and everything. And I think someone asked me a question while I'm still on here.
Check the chat.
Yeah. So Ike was asking, how did you adapt to your negative experience, and what did you learn from that?
Well, it depends on how you are as a person. Like, if we're being really real in this space, which I hope that we are being, it sucked. It really did, because it weighs on you, as a person. Like, I didn't know that me just being here made you think or feel that way. So I actually utilize a lot of the resources that the school provides us. I found a person that I can go talk to. I found a counselor, and trust me, take the counseling because it's free, because after that you got to pay for it. Okay. And it gets really expensive. So everything that the school provides for like mental health, that's the biggest thing. And it could be mental health where you just need to talk to someone, or if you need to go get medicine, like if you're dealing with anxiety or depression or anything like that, because it does, grad school gets hard. They have people for that. And I just have to scream this at the top of my lungs: utilize the resources and the help that they offer at that school. Like, do it now, because getting out of grad school, like, I still go see a counselor, right? Because it did, like, those negative things still affected me today. And now I'm handling it so much better than I did a year ago. So definitely, like, what I learned from it, take what they give you at that school, like, because it really helps. Sorry guys, I'll stop talking now.
I really appreciate your perspective, because that's something that you don't really think about. Well, you do think about it, but you kind of learn to push through it as a person of color in higher education, especially if you go beyond your bachelor's degree. You start to see less and less people of color in your classes and in your departments. So I think you really reminded us that representation matters, and I'm so happy that you're here at Chico State with us in your position, because you do matter. Anybody else?
If I can speak on the positive for a little bit, some of the positive experiences from graduate school was just the fact that we were learning, you know what I mean? And, reading books that you've never have heard of people you've never even heard of or would have heard of if you weren't in graduate school. I just think that's really positive for me, at least, was the expansion of knowledge that I had in graduate school. So my program in psychology was supposed to be 2 years, but I did 1 year in the school psychology program. That's where we kind of crossed paths with Moretta. But I learned a lot, through some counseling classes. I learned theories. I learned actual practicum in the school psychology part. But when I switched to do more research, I learned more about stats, more about like psychology, about advanced human learning. And so it's just a sheer experience of learning more things that was such a positive for me. But it did come at a price, right? I think some of us mentioned here that graduate school is sort of inherently isolating. It is lonesome because you have to spend that time reading on your own, right? You can't read in partners. You have to spend time on your own writing, right? And also thinking. So all that experience of learning can also be very solitary, and that can also affect your mental health and whatnot. And of course, I echo what Ashlyn was saying about using your resources, because at the end of the day, they are free. I did use the counseling services my last 2 years of graduate school. And I have to say, I don't think I would have graduated without it. Just keeping me focused is having, I guess it doesn't have to be like a therapist or something, but someone you can go to and be your real self, where you can take off the academic persona and break down if you have to, or talk about your peers or your advisor or something. Just having an opportunity to sort of have some catharsis every day is helpful. Yeah.
Thank you, Gustavo.
I could add a couple of my pointers as well. So I'll start with the negatives. I come from India, which is a very collectivistic culture, and it's a developing economy. And when I came to US, California, it's a very individualistic culture, and it's a developed economy, right? I never expected myself to make so many cultural faux pas and cultural mistakes that I did. So that's something that was a negative experience. Sometimes I didn't even realize that I was making blunders. One fine day, I was just traveling, and I met somebody, and I asked them their GRE score, because in India, GRE, everybody knows their each other's GRE scores. I did not know that in US it's not the case, and they were literally shocked. So I made so many mistakes. This is just one of them. And I learned from it, of course. What I learned is that as long as we're conscious and sensitive and aware about, that we need to be very sensitive, and as long as we let ourselves fail, sometimes it's absolutely okay. So that's the cultural aspect of it. On the flip side, there were positive experiences. There was a plethora of positive experiences, and Chico State literally transformed me professionally, personally, emotionally, and even spiritually. And the reason that happened was because I found meaning in what I was studying. So I was studying sports psychology, and it combined my passion, my purpose, my skills. So once that happened, once I understood why I was doing something, why I was pursuing this course, why it added meaning to my life, I was able to navigate through all the challenges very smoothly. So yeah, so the personal transformation is the positive experience that I experienced at Chico State.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And kind of to go along with the personal transformation that you just mentioned, and kind of what Gustavo had said, you do get this like almost whole other opportunity to recreate yourself in grad school and learn from your undergraduate careers, right? Marita, did you want to say anything or add to anything? I saw you unmute and then muted.
I put it in the chat so people could read it, but just adding in, just really amplifying that, use the resources at your school. Not only was I a part of a program that offered free counseling as we were learning, but it was free to students or anyone in the community. So schools that have graduate programs for counseling have these extra resources. Yes, there's someone in training, but it's still someone to talk to, still someone who might understand your experience as a fellow student a little bit more than just any counselor. And then also I worked through the accessibilities office as well. So I helped students reach their resources a little bit more attainably, navigate the system. So, I mean, I'm very aware of all the resources that Chico State has. So utilize Chico State's resources. And if you don't go to Chico State and go to another college, as a lot of the members here have gone to different colleges, seek out your resources, because there's always a plethora available that you can utilize, and ones that you wouldn't even think about are there available on campus that are underutilized. I just really wanted to emphasize that because I used them and I offered them. So that definitely added to my experience, and along my journey really helped me become more well-rounded of a person, and yeah, just help me grow and become more of who I am and give back in the way that I want with my company. Thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to mention, Jasmine, that we have another question in the chat, and that was directed toward what Gustavo had to say about grad school being isolating. And I was wondering if anyone could share some tips on how they connected to peers and possible mentoring during their time.
I can jump in with a couple of tips there. Like these are some that I learned as of late, right? And just because I say that grad school is isolating doesn't mean that it has to be. So one thing I would suggest is writing groups. So if you can like dedicate like 1 to 2 hours, like a set time, either like book a room at the library or something, tell your peers like, yo, we're gonna meet up at the library from 1 to 3, just have an active writing group where you bring your laptops and you start writing, whether it's a paper for your class, whether it's your actual thesis or scholarship or application for something, writing group is beneficial. Similarly, of course, you have study groups that also helps, but that's kind of more traditional ones. So I would do that with peers. You can also do like an informal standing meeting at a bar somewhere. You know, you can go like, you know, have a standing meeting every Friday at the Bear during happy hour or something like that, right? That way you have that informal meeting paired with a formal meeting as well. Those two go hand in hand and they go pretty well nicely together. And with mentors, go into office hours. Like I know that people stress that in undergraduate, but you cannot stress that even more in graduate school is you know, go to office hours. The reality is that they tend to like think more highly of you because you are a graduate student. And that's just the way it is, the hierarchy of academia, right? So their offices are more open to you. They're also willing to share more personal stories with you, and of course, any career advice that they may give you or you may ask for. So yeah, to sum up, writing groups, informal meetings, and use the office hours.
To piggyback on that a little bit, the meetings are great, and it seems like you kind of have to be the person to organize them. You may not have that person in your cohort that does it, but if you do organize them, a lot of people are going to be interested. At least that's how it was for my side. I didn't really organize things. Like I said, I'm a loner, but I always showed up, you know, when people invited me to things. And that's the flip side to it. You have to be open to going to meetings, or, you know, going to hang out at the bar, or, you know, something super small like meeting up for the Thursday night market. Yeah, you have to be open.
Also, I kind of just want to chime in and say that just because you're a grad student doesn't mean that you can't take advantage of, again, resources, but also organizations that are offered at your campus. Like, for example, I never heard of Adelante as an undergraduate student, and it has been so rewarding to be a part of this program because it aligns with my values and it wants me to succeed, right, in my position, and then also as I mentor students. So I've honestly never felt more connected than I am now. And it's all because I was told by a professor to apply to a summer research program, right? That turned out to be Adelante. And I eventually ended up moving up in rank in the program. So just take advantage of things that you might be a little hesitant at first, but it's still worthwhile to participate. With that said, we can move on to our third question. And maybe, sorry, I have to move my little window. What were your biggest challenges in grad school and how did you overcome them? I believe we've also touched on this a little bit.
I can start. So this is something that I dealt with the whole time that I was in grad school, is just keeping up with the workload. It always seems like it's way too much to handle, and it really is. At least it is for the history department. There's a ton of reading, literally reading at least a book a week, which sounds crazy, but it's doable. So that was always my biggest challenge. And I'm a little bit of a grade grubber, meaning I always want to do the best that I can possibly do. And it's not necessarily to compete with my peers, but I just want to do, for myself, to do the best that I can do, knowing I did a good job and knowing that I tried my hardest is always the best payoff. But to overcome like this challenge of feeling like I can't do all the work, I had to learn better time management. I had to sacrifice some free time, which is okay, because like Gagandeep said, I fell in love with what I was doing. So it didn't seem like I was sacrificing free time. It seemed like I was doing something I wanted to do anyways. And I also had to learn to sort of accept subpar work. I'm not saying that I slacked off or anything, but sometimes you can't polish that paper like you wanted to, and you have to turn it in, and that's just how it goes. But I found that subpar work is still good enough. It's still going to get you at the very least, a C. But you'll be able to recover and move forward from that and learn from whatever mistakes you did that got you that C.
Exactly. And there's always other assignments that you can do better in.
Okay. So the biggest challenge was towards the last year. So when you guys were getting ready to do your projects and you write them up and you're writing your thesis, your chair and your second chair, depending on what field you're in, right? So you have your chair or your counsel, and that one was hard because you want to get it done, you want to get it out of the way, right? You want to finish the thesis and move on to bigger and better things. And sometimes, you have to remember that your professors and the people that sit on your committee are humans too, right? So they don't have all this free time to write like you do, right? Because they have families and stuff. So the best advice that I can give to you guys starting off is, once you start doing that research and you're starting to write, your committee members, especially your chair, set up like a solid date and time, whether it's once a week, twice a week. One, because that gives you I am so sorry, the train is going by. But that gives you like a date and a time when to get things done, if it's specific chapters or sections within your thesis. Also, it gives them time to then look over what you've written and gives them time to give you feedback, right? So your meeting might be every Tuesday, but you have a deadline of Friday to get the next sections in, or whatever you guys decide on. That is the best thing that I can tell you in the most organized way. That was the biggest challenge. It took me a while to get there with my chair, to like solidify days and times. And I'm gonna mute myself, the train's coming, I'm sorry.
That was excellent suggestion. I love that idea because, it's that time management, and you're managing your time and you're managing your your chair's time too, or at least you're doing what you can to make that happen. So what a great idea, Ashlyn.
I can share a small observation. Um, so in grad school, we are taught courses, right? We are taught physics, we are taught maths, we are taught biology and what all and what not.
Mhm.
What I felt personally is that when life happens, it never happens in courses, right? Physics doesn't happen separately, economics doesn't happen separately. So what one of the biggest challenges for me was to connect the dots, connect different courses, connect different learnings, and apply them in my real life. So what I try to do, one way to overcome that is that in all of my assignments that I got, I would make sure that I would include anecdotes from other courses, examples and theories from other courses, and connect them to what the assignment was about. I think that took me some time. Instead of if the assignment required 2 hours of work, it would probably require me 2.5 hours of work. But the result was that my learning experience was taken to the next level. So I would also request all the students to connect knowledge, because life happens from everywhere. So connect all the knowledge that you gain, and try to apply it in the real life.
Yeah, that's a really good tip, because the more you feel connected to something, the more you're willing to engage and work and learn from it, right? Yeah. It's great.
Well, I was going to add something, but how do you follow that? That is such a deep, I mean, I love what you just shared. A little speechless now, but my field was all about life and how we interact with it. So hearing someone from a different school of thought get that is, I think it's just super beautiful. But also kind of segues into what my biggest challenge was, having learning differences and being a slow learner at times. Grad school is very fast paced, very, like Juan said, like tons and tons of reading, no matter which department you're in. And I'm a slow reader, so it took me a long time to get through everything. And a lot of the things I either didn't get to or didn't finish, right? So that imposter syndrome grew, or just having to really practice that, okay, I didn't do it this time. Okay, so the next time we have an article that long, I need to give myself more time to do it, right? That time management aspect, or just that grace of, it's good enough for now. It's going to get me through. And plus, adding in that life experience or connecting it to other areas allows you to be able to grasp those concepts a little bit easier, opposed to just like, okay, that article said this, or on that page this, right? Taking the bigger picture really helped me, and connecting different themes or different theories together really did impact my learning personally. So again, probably why I'm so speechless after what he just shared. But yeah, it giving yourself grace to be the learner that you are, and seeking out the resources that we talked about earlier. If you need more support, I mean, I'm going to geek out. Chico State resources are still amazing, and I'm going to echo this in forever and ever and ever, but there are programs that you can get for free on campus that help you read through things faster, highlight as they read for you. So there's always a way. That was our like kind of team motto in the accessibilities office. There's always a way, we just need to find it. So yeah, but it definitely could be overcome. Yes, Kurzweil or Kurzweil. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but it's a great program. I highly recommend it.
I want to add just one little thing.
Mhm.
Please, guys, do not compare yourself with someone else. because there's always going to be that one student or a few students that they speak up all the time. They know it, like they could teach the class, right? And it gets super frustrating. And yeah, I was a slower learner too. Like it took me a while for it to click in my head, especially when it comes to theories and stuff. And some people, it's like they know the back of their hand kind of, deal. But do not compare yourself to them, because if you're weaker in some areas, you're stronger in others, and don't let that dictate your feelings about a class, or you're in the middle and like, I just don't understand this. Who cares? I'm just going to do minimal work just to get by. Still hold yourself accountable. Still give that 110% that you normally do. This might take you a little bit longer. And just don't compare yourself to other people, because things are going to change, especially when you guys go through more years and stuff like that, and really figure out where you stand. So.
And if you do find yourself comparing yourself to other people, know that other people are also struggling. Everybody's struggling. Everybody's on the same page. If a reading was especially hard, it probably was especially hard for the person next to you. And even the person that's raising their hand all the time is probably struggling with something else. For me, that was comforting.
If I can also add to that, I think when we do compare ourselves, that does sort of destroy creativity and joy in what we do, because you see it as a competition, as a sort of game when it's not, right? But I find it something that's helped me in my successes that I've had is comparing myself to who I was yesterday, right? And so like if that meant, for example, like I like to go to the gym every now and then, but like if I ran one lap yesterday, I know I could run one lap today, and probably could run one more as well, to run 2 laps, right? It's the same thing with your reading, same thing with your raising your hand. If you rose your hand on one class but didn't get called on, but that was your biggest fear, raising your hand. Look, you rose your hand on one class. Next time, watch, you're gonna get called on, and that's it's sort of like progressive overload, right? That's what it is. But if I can talk a little bit about the biggest challenges that I face in graduate school, maybe others can attest to this as well, is like it's coming in as a young Latino male into a space that's not ours, right? It's like I face this identity crisis in graduate school that no one else really talked about, but I'm not wondering if anybody else felt that, but I know I did. And the identity crisis came in sort of like I am pursuing a career in academia that it's not a career that my parents know of, right? Or my cousins know of. And so when I'm trying to explain it to them, I just realize how foreign this academia is. And so here I am, stipend and whatnot, but yet I have cousins who are working out, in the construction, out in the hot sun, losing a job of the pandemic and whatnot, while I was sitting comfortably working from home. And so these are sort of some issues that I faced in graduate school, whereas, I was like, okay, I am, Mexican American, I am, who I am. I listen to the music that I listen to. I talk the way that I do. I say yo in every now and then, and I might not sound like I have a graduate degree, but I can use big words when I have to. But like you don't see yourself reflected in academia, so it's like, wait, am I really Mexican American? Am I Mexican? Do I have to lose some of my identity features in order to fit into academia? And so it's something I'm still wrestling now. It does help that I am in UCLA, where the sort of environment is a lot more friendly to people of color, if I can say so, rather than Chico, right? So that's helping a little bit, but it's still something that I face right now, especially as I'm moving up higher in the ranks in academia, where it's like I'm seeing less and less people who look like me. I feel like I have to lose a little bit of myself and sort of take on what a professor actually looks like. You know what I mean? Like, do I have to wear, the sort of suit with the shoulder pads and whatnot, or can I just wear, my Jordans? You know what I mean? It's something like that. But for me, that's what the biggest challenge was.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, because we don't hear a lot of that going on, right? Like, even if we're living in it, we don't really, it's something that you don't really like to speak about also, because it is really isolating. And you brought up a reading from Bell Hooks. She speaks from writing from a kitchen table and sharing their kitchen table with her family, but she's also like miles away in her research, and they're right across from her, and how it does become very isolating. Um, yeah. Would anyone else like to try and answer the question? Or I believe everyone has. So we can go ahead and move on to the next. Wait, hold on. Sorry, let me backtrack. There is a question in the chat. So we can go ahead and try and answer this one. And of the resources mentioned, was there one that helped you the most or that you most recommend, that you would most recommend? And thank you, Ike, for sharing your question.
I think Gustavo and me said the writing lab, use it. Like that would, so the thing is, just because like a handful of the people that work in the writing center are undergraduate, don't take them don't put them off in this corner, right? Just because you're in grad school and they're an undergrad. So, right, Gustavo, like every writer needs a reader, because I can read the thing 50 times, but you know what? That person can see where I'm missing commas, semicolons, because ain't nobody know when to use semicolons and not to use them. And that was the biggest thing, especially like writing different chapters or sections and everything like that. The writing center, I think you can go, if they haven't changed it, it was twice a week, I think it was, that you can go in there and it's free and you get an hour with them. So for sure.
Yeah, and check with your department as well. There might be some department specific resources. Like the history department had their own writing center for history writing, because it's vastly different from other academic writing. Not vastly different, but it has very specific things. So that specific resource in the department was always a huge help. And I worked there at some point, and people always were appreciative of the work that we were doing, because like Ashlyn said, you miss small things when you're looking at the same piece of paper for, however long you worked on it.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next question. And that is, if there was one thing you could have told or could tell students about how to succeed, what would it be?
Dodge all the haters, okay? Like dodge them all. So there are people that will put you down, that are jealous, whether it's family members or other people in academics and stuff, and you cannot do that to yourself, right? So that's the best thing I can tell someone is do you, and listen to your own self. If you know it's a good thing, don't question yourself. And if you feel it true, like this is gonna sound so cheesy, if you feel it true in your heart, you do it. If it's right for you, you do it for you, right? It's like that self-care kind of thing. Like put yourself first, but also too, being Hawaiian, right? Being Polynesian, being Native American, my success, yes, it was, I did the work, right? And I, blood, sweat, and tears in them, right? But don't forget where you came from too. Like we have this saying, Ikavamamua Kavamahope. So the future is in the past, right? So look at your ancestors, right? Because it's not just you, like you stand on the shoulders of giants. Your ancestors died for you to be here. Make them proud. Like you got here for a reason. You put in the hard work. They put in the hard work. So just like always remember that, right? You stand on the shoulders of giants, and you take information with a grain of salt, even if it's not always in your corner, right? Um, and always go through it with the best intentions, because you have your ancestors in the back of you, and what we call mo'opuna puni, which is, then you have your grandchildren right in the front of you. So you have people that are um, either here physically or ancestrally in the front and in the back of you, right? So you're not doing this alone. They're there with you, they're watching you, right? So you gotta, it's not just you, like uplift them too, right? When you speak for them as well.
Yeah, I love what you just said, because Malia Powell speaks to bringing your ancestors in to every space that you inhibit.
If you don't mind, yeah, Kakandeep, thank you for me. I wanted to see if you would say a little something about this. One thing I would tell the students, like, find meaning in what you do, and sort of build that narrative that you want to build for yourself. Right, something that helped me along the way and helps make meaning of all the suffering, right? Make meaning of the isolation, make meaning of all the rejections. And yeah, Kakandeep, I'm hoping you can speak a little bit about that, about the, how to find the meaning in what we do.
I love what you said, Gustavo, about meaning, because it always helps us flow through all the sufferings. Thanks for sharing that with us. On the very similar lines, I have this recommendation that, we as human beings, we tend to label our experiences. We tend to label everything as, good, bad, possible, impossible, realistic, unrealistic. But what I feel is that all of our experiences, they are just a series of causes and effects. So like, if I work hard on my studies, there are chances that I'll get good grades. If I develop my emotional intelligence, there are chances that I'll have good relationships. If I'm an athlete and I practice really hard on my sport, there are chances that I'll win the tournament. But the outcome is never truly under our control. So just create process goals and let go of the attachment to the outcomes. I know it's easier said than done, because our culture is all about performance and getting things done. But try to learn from the outcomes, what the cause is, what the effect is, and go back and change the cause, and that will change the outcome. So this is a strategy that I use that helps me detach from all those labels, and it reduces unnecessary suffering. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. I've never set process goals, so I will look into that now. Thank you.
I was gonna say that, I mean, it's very similar to what everyone else has been saying. The committee that picks who goes into each program picked you. I think it was one of my professors or chair who helped me see that, like, they pick you. So you get into these programs for a reason. Yes, you might have the grades and this, and this, but they're also usually looking for a well-rounded cohort, especially in a cohort as large as mine. It was like, oh, well, they just accepted everybody. No, they didn't. Or they might have, I don't know, but they did accept us into each program and going, okay, well, this person has this to offer. They have this life experience or this undergraduate degree, and it's going to create more dynamic and interesting conversations within the classrooms when you're trying to learn these different theories and concepts and whatnot. So everyone has something to bring to the table, and we all have something to learn from one another, as well as the material that we're learning. So that was something that I learned throughout. And I'm super happy that that was one of my biggest things that I took from my program, was like, I'm not just learning from these textbooks and my professors. I'm like learning from the student next to me. I'm learning from the student who thinks they know it all. I'm learning from the student who thinks that they're not good enough to be here. I'm learning from each person in every interaction along the way, and just to really, yeah, be open to all of it. Because I mean, everyone here has said some version of it. We're learning so much in that environment, but not just from the text, right? It's really powerful if you're open to it.
You all are amazing. The things that you have been sharing is very deep. And I just want to thank everyone for such a rich conversation. We are coming up on 5 o'clock, so I just wanted to see if anybody had any last comments or questions, but I just had to pop in and just say, wow, this has been amazing. And I'm very grateful that you all were willing to be here for this.
I have one thing to add for like the success of everything. Like Polynesians are super in touch with like the earth, and right, we're spiritual people, right? So at any point, if you can, like, if you want to be outside, because sometimes you forget, right? You go to school, you're in class, you come home, you read, you're under fluorescent lights, you're in the dark, under a lamp, on the computer, whatever it may be. Please go outside. Go feel the grass under your toes. Go to the river and read. Be outside. Get that vitamin D, right? That's even if you're on, like, if you have a little porch or whatever, and you set your chair up and you're typing outside, you have to go. Like, I can't emphasize this enough. Go outside. Okay.
Yes, I echo that 100%. Go out. You may think like, oh, I need Wi-Fi to go outside or something. One piece of advice I want to leave you all with is like something I learned the hard way in graduate school, but you need to have time to think, because most of the learning in graduate school occurs outside the classroom. I think someone said earlier about having to like integrate a lot of different learnings from different courses. That takes time to think, right? So you have to think. And so one thing that you can do outside is just think, right? And ponder the things that you've learned, connect them, find ways to apply them to your real life, or just simply, do a writing exercise and write down what you remember from a reading, or apply it to some other concept. But whatever the case is, you need to find time to think, because that's where the learning will happen, outside the classroom. And if you can do it outside, by all means, go for it.
Yeah. And Chico State is a beautiful campus to do that in. I loved being able to, like, I was over on one side of the campus working, on the other side taking classes. So that 15-minute walk across campus, like Gustavo said, I was able to think or not think, even, like, give my brain that break. I mean, it's a beautiful campus on the Mechoopda land. Like, go utilize. That's one resource we haven't really fully or specifically said, like, the resource of the beauty of our campus. Mm-hmm. Like, you can go sit by the creek if there's water, right? And just enjoy the beauty of it.
I can add one last recommendation, is to balance action and non-action. I know in grad school we are pushed to do more, and we have a very strong bias for action, but it's exhausting, and it can cause burnout in the long run. So balance your action with non-action, and sometimes when you don't feel like studying, I always recommend students to just go guilt-free. Give yourself guilt-free rest, and even if the deadline is approaching, it's absolutely okay. It's absolutely okay to not have the best grades. It's absolutely okay to not be okay. So just try to practice that. take care of yourself, and outcomes will take care of themselves.
Yeah. A really close mentor of mine has always told me, just do the next right thing, even if the next right thing is a shower. Just do it. But with that said, I feel deeply honored to have shared this space with you all and to have the honor to facilitate and get to know you all on a deeper level. I feel so connected to you, and I feel so bad that we have to end this here.